Section 4 of From Plotzk to Boston. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. From Plotzk to Boston by Mary Antin. Section 4. I only remember from that moment that I had only one care till all became quiet, not to lose hold of my sister's hand. Everything else can be told in one word: noise. But when I look back I can see what made it. There were sailors dragging and hauling bundles and boxes from the small boat into the great ship, shouting and thundering at their work. There were officers giving out orders in loud voices like trumpets, though they seemed to make no effort. There were children crying and mothers hushing them, and fathers questioning the officers as to where they should go. There were little boats and steamers passing all around, shrieking and whistling terribly, and there seemed to be everything under heaven that had any noise in it come to help swell the confusion of sounds. I know that, but how we ever got in that quiet place that had the sign "For Families" over it, I don't know. I think we went around and around long and far before we got there. But there we were, sitting quietly on a bench by the white berths. When the sailors brought our things, we got everything in order for the journey as soon as possible, that we might go on deck to see the starting. But first we had to obey a sailor, who told us to come and get dishes. Each person received a plate, a spoon, and a cup. I wondered how we could get along if we had no things of our own. For an hour or two more there were still many noises on deck, and many preparations made. Then we went up, as most of the passengers did. What a change in the scene! Where there had been noise and confusion before, peace and quiet were now. All the little boats and steamers had disappeared, and the wharf was deserted. On deck, the Polynesia, everything was in good order, and the officers walked about smoking their cigars as if their work was done. Only a few sailors were at work at the big ropes, but they didn't shout as before. The weather had changed too, for the twilight was unlike what the day had promised. The sky was a soft gray, with faint streaks of yellow on the horizon. The air was still and pleasant, much warmer than it had been all the day, and the water was as motionless and clear as a deep, cool well, and everything was mirrored in it clearly. This entire change in the scene, the peace that encircled everything around us, seemed to give all the same feeling that I know I had. I fancied that nature created it especially for us, so that we would be allowed, in this pause, to think of our situation. All seemed to do so. All spoke in low voices, and seemed to be looking for something as they gazed quietly into the smooth depths below, or the twilight skies above. Were they seeking an assurance? Perhaps, for there was something strange in the absence of a crowd of friends on the shore to cheer and salute, and fill the air with white clouds and last farewells. I found the assurance. The very stillness was a voice, nature's voice, and it spoke to the ocean and said, "I entrust to you this vessel. Take care of it, for it bears my children with it, from one strange shore to another more distant, where loving friends are waiting to embrace them after long partings. Be gentle with your charge." And the ocean, though seeming so still, replied, "I will obey my mistress." I heard it all, and a feeling of safety and protection came to me. And when at last the wheels overhead began to turn and clatter, and the ripples on the water told us that the Polynesia had started on her journey, which was not noticeable from any other sign, I felt only a sense of happiness. I mistrusted nothing. But the old woman who remembered the matzo did more than anybody else. She made great preparations for being seasick, and poisoned the air with garlic and onions. When the lantern fixed in the ceiling had been lighted, the captain and the steward paid us a visit. They took up our tickets and noticed all the passengers, then left. Then a sailor brought supper, bread and coffee. Only a few ate it. Then all went to bed, though it was very early. Nobody expected seasickness as soon as it seized us. All slept quietly the whole night, not knowing any difference between being on land or at sea. About 5 o'clock I woke up, and then I felt and heard the sea. A very disagreeable smell came from it, and I knew it was disturbed by the rocking of the ship. Oh, how wretched it made us! From side to side it went rocking, rocking. Ugh! Many of the passengers are very sick indeed. They suffer terribly. We are all awake now, and wonder if we too will be so sick. Some children are crying at intervals. There is nobody to comfort them. All are so miserable. Oh, I am so sick. I'm dizzy. Everything is going round and round before my eyes. Oh! I can't even begin to tell of the suffering of the next few hours. Then I thought I would feel better if I could go on deck. Somehow I got down, we had upper berths, and supporting myself against the walls I came on deck. But it was worse. The green water tossing up the white foam, rocking all around as far as I dared to look, was frightful to me then. So I crawled back as well as I could, and nobody else tried to go out. By and by the doctor and the steward came. The doctor asked each passenger if they were well, but only smiled when all begged for some medicine to take away the dreadful suffering. To those who suffered from anything besides seasickness he sent medicine and special food later on. His companion appointed one of the men passengers for every 12 or 15 to carry the meals from the kitchen, giving them cards to get it with. For our group a young German was appointed, who was making the journey for the second time with his mother and sister. We were great friends with them during the journey. The doctor went away soon, leaving the sufferers in the same sad condition. At 12 a sailor announced that dinner was ready, and the man brought it, large tin pails and basins of soup, meat, cabbage, potatoes, and pudding. The last was only allowed once a week, and almost all of it was thrown away, as only a few men ate. The rest couldn't bear even the smell of food. It was the same with the supper at 6 o'clock. At 3 milk had been brought for the babies, and brown bread, a treat, with coffee for the rest. But after supper the daily allowance of fresh water was brought, and this soon disappeared and more called for, which was refused, although we lived on water alone for a week. At last the day was gone, and much we had borne in it. Night came, but brought little relief. Some did fall asleep, and forgot suffering for a few hours. I was awake late. The ship was quieter and everything sadder than by daylight. I thought of all we had gone through till we had got on board the Polynesia, of the parting from all friends and things we loved, forever as far as we knew, of the strange experience at various strange places, of the kind friends who helped us, and the rough officers who commanded us, of the quarantine, the hunger, then the happy news and the coming on board. Of all this I thought, and remembered that we were far away from friends, and longed for them, that I might be made well by speaking to them, and every minute was making the distance between us greater, a meeting more impossible. Then I remembered why we were crossing the ocean, and knew that it was worth the price. At last the noise of the wheels overhead and the dull roar of the sea rocked me to sleep. For a short time only. The ship was tossed about more than the day before, and the great waves sounded like distant thunder as they beat against it, and rolled across the deck and entered the cabin. We found, however, that we were better, though very weak. We managed to go on deck in the afternoon when it was calm enough. A little band was playing, and a few young sailors and German girls tried even to dance, but it was impossible. As I sat in a corner where no waves could reach me, holding onto a rope, I tried to take in the grand scene. There was the mighty ocean I had heard of only, spreading out its rough breadth far, far around, its waves giving out deep, angry tones, and throwing up walls of spray into the air. There was the sky, like the sea, full of ridges of darkest clouds, bending to meet the waves, and following their motions, and frowning and threatening. And there was the Polynesia in the midst of this world of gloom and anger and distance. I saw these but indistinctly, not half comprehending the wonderful picture, for the suffering had left me dull and tired out. I only knew that I was sad and everybody else was the same. Another day gone, and we congratulate one another that seasickness lasted only one day with us. So we go to sleep. Oh, the sad mistake! For 6 days longer we remain in our berths, miserable and unable to eat. It is a long fast, hardly interrupted, during which we know that the weather is unchanged, the sky dark, the sea stormy. On the 8th day out we are again able to be about. I went around everywhere, exploring every corner and learning much from the sailors, but I never remembered the names of the various things I asked about. They were so many, and some German names hard to learn. We all made friends with the captain and other officers and many of the passengers. The little band played regularly on certain days, and the sailors and girls had a good many dances, though often they were swept by a wave across the deck quite out of time. The children were allowed to play on deck, but carefully watched. Still the weather continued the same, or changing slightly, but I was able now to see all the grandeur of my surroundings, notwithstanding the weather. Oh, what solemn thoughts I had! How deeply I felt the greatness, the power of the scene, the immeasurable distance from horizon to horizon, the huge billows forever changing their shapes, now only a wavy and rolling plain, now a chain of great mountains coming and going further away, then a town in the distance, perhaps with spires and towers and buildings of gigantic dimensions, and mostly a vast mass of uncertain shapes, knocking against each other in fury, and seething and foaming in their anger. The gray sky, with its mountains of gloomy clouds flying, moving with the waves, as it seemed, very near them, the absence of any object beside the one ship, and the deep, solemn groans of the sea, sounding as if all the voices of the world had been turned into sighs, and then gathered into that one mournful sound. So deeply did I feel the presence of these things, that the feeling became one of awe, both painful and sweet, and stirring and warming, and deep and calm and grand. I thought of tempests and shipwreck, of lives lost, treasures destroyed, and all the tales I had heard of the misfortunes at sea, and knew I had never before had such a clear idea of them. I tried to realize that I saw only a part of an immense whole, and then my feelings were terrible in their force. I was afraid of thinking then, but could not stop it. My mind would go on working till I was overcome by the strength and power that was greater than myself. What I did at such times I do not know. I must have been dazed. After a while I could sit quietly and gaze far away. Then I would imagine myself all alone on the ocean, and Robinson Crusoe was very real to me. I was alone sometimes. I was aware of no human presence. I was conscious only of sea and sky and something I did not understand. And as I listened to its solemn voice, I felt as if I had found a friend, and knew that I loved the ocean. It seemed as if it were within as well as without a part of myself, and I wondered how I had lived without it, and if I could ever part with it. The ocean spoke to me in other besides mournful or angry tones. I loved even the angry voice, but when it became soothing, I could hear a sweet, gentle accent that reached my soul rather than my ear. Perhaps I imagined it, I do not know. What was real and what imaginary blended in one, but I heard and felt it, and at such moments I wished I could live on the sea forever, and thought that the sight of land would be very unwelcome to me. I did not want to be near any person. Alone with the ocean forever, that was my wish. Leading a quiet life, the same every day, and thinking such thoughts, feeling such emotions, The days were very long. I do not know how the others passed the time, because I was so lost in my meditations, but when the sky would smile for a while, when a little sunlight broke a path for itself through the heavy clouds, which disappeared as though frightened, and when the sea looked more friendly, and changed its color to match the heavens, which were higher up, then we would sit on deck together and laugh for mere happiness as we talked of the nearing meeting which the unusual fairness of the weather seemed to bring nearer. Sometimes, at such minutes of sunshine and gladness, a few birds would be seen making their swift journey to some point we did not know of, sometimes among the light clouds, then almost touching the surface of the waves. How shall I tell you what we felt at the sight? The birds were like old friends to us, and brought back many memories, which seemed very old, though really fresh. All felt sadder when the distance became too great for us to see the dear little friends, though it was not for a long time after their first appearance. We used to watch for them, and often mistook the clouds for birds, and were thus disappointed. When they did come, how envious we were of their wings! It was a new thought to me that the birds had more power than man. In this way the days went by. I thought my thoughts each day as I watched the scene, hoping to see a beautiful sunset some day. I never did, to my disappointment. And each night, as I lay in my berth waiting for sleep, I wished I might be able even to hope for the happiness of a sea voyage after this had been ended. Yet, when on the 12th day after leaving Hamburg, the captain announced that we should see land before long, I rejoiced as much as anybody else. We were so excited with expectation that nothing else was heard but the talk of the happy arrival now so near. Some were even willing to stay up at night to be the first ones to see the shores of America. It was therefore a great disappointment when the captain said in the evening that we would not reach Boston as soon as he expected on account of the weather. A dense fog set in at night and grew heavier and heavier until the Polynesia was closely walled in by it, and we could just see from one end of the deck to the other. The signal lanterns were put up. The passengers were driven to their berths by the cold and damp. The cabin doors closed, and discomfort reigned everywhere. But the excitement of the day had tired us out, and we were glad to forget disappointment in sleep. In the morning it was still foggy, but we could see a little way around. It was very strange to have the boundless distance made so narrow, and I felt the strangeness of the scene. All day long we shivered with cold and hardly left the cabin. At last it was night once more, and we in our berths, but nobody slept. The sea had been growing rougher during the day, and at night the ship began to pitch as it did at the beginning of the journey. Then it grew worse. Everything in our cabin was rolling on the floor, clattering and dinning. Dishes were broken into little bits that flew about from one end to the other. Bedding from upper berths nearly stifled the people in the lower ones. Some fell out of their berths, but it was not at all funny. As the ship turned to one side, the passengers were violently thrown against that side of the berths, and some boards gave way and clattered down to the floor. When it tossed on the other side, we could see the little windows almost touch the water, and closed the shutters to keep out the sight. The children cried, everybody groaned, and sailors kept coming in to pick up the things on the floor and carry them away. This made the confusion less, but not the alarm. Above all sounds rose the foghorn. It never stopped the whole night through, and oh, how sad it sounded! It pierced every heart and made us afraid. Now and then some ship far away would answer like a weak echo. Sometimes we noticed that the wheels were still, and we knew that the ship had stopped. This frightened us more than ever, for we imagined the worst reasons for it. It was day again, and a little calmer. We slept now till the afternoon. Then we saw that the fog had become much thinner, and later on we even saw a ship, but indistinctly. Another night passed, and the day that followed was pretty fair, and towards evening the sky was almost cloudless. The captain said we should have no more rough weather, for now we were really near Boston. Oh, how hard it was to wait for the happy day. Somebody brought the news that we should land tomorrow in the afternoon. We didn't believe it, so he said that the steward had ordered a great pudding full of raisins for supper that day as a sure sign that it was the last on board. We remembered the pudding, but didn't believe in its meaning. I don't think we slept that night. After all the suffering of our journey, after seeing and hearing nothing but the sky and the sea and its roaring, it was impossible to sleep when we thought that soon we would see trees, fields, fresh people, animals, a world, and that world America. Then, above everything, was the meeting with friends we had not seen for years, for almost everybody had some friends awaiting them. Morning found all the passengers up and expectant. Someone questioned the captain, and he said we would land tomorrow. There was another long day and another sleepless night. But when these ended at last, how busy we were! First we packed up all the things we did not need, then put on fresh clothing, and then went on deck to watch for land. It was almost 3 o'clock, the hour the captain hoped to reach Boston, but there was nothing new to be seen. The weather was fair, so we would have seen anything within a number of miles. Anxiously we watched, and as we talked of the strange delay, our courage began to give out with our hope. When it could be borne no longer, a gentleman went to speak to the captain. He was on the upper deck examining the horizon. He put off the arrival for the next day. You can imagine our feelings at this. When it was worse, the captain came down and talked so assuringly that in spite of all the disappointments we had had, we believed that this was the last, and were quite cheerful when we went to bed. The morning was glorious. It was the 8th of May, the 17th day after we left Hamburg. The sky was clear and blue. The sun shone brightly, as if to congratulate us that we had safely crossed the stormy sea, and to apologize for having kept away from us so long. The sea had lost its fury. It was almost as quiet as it had been at Hamburg before we started, and its color was a beautiful greenish blue. Birds were all time in the air, and it was worth while to live merely to hear their songs. And soon, oh, joyful sight, we saw the tops of 2 trees. What a shout there rose! Everyone pointed out the welcome sight to everybody else, as if they did not see it. All eyes were fixed on it, as if they saw a miracle. And this was only the beginning of the joys of the day. What confusion there was! Some were flying up the stairs to the upper deck, some were tearing down to the lower one. Others were running in and out of the cabin, some were in all parts of the ship in 1 minute, and all were talking and laughing and getting in somebody's way. Such excitement, such joy! We had seen 2 trees! Then steamers and boats of all kinds passed by in all directions. We shouted, and the men stood up in the boats and returned the greeting, waving their hats. We were as glad to see them as if they were old friends of ours. Oh, what a beautiful scene! No corner of the earth is half so fair as the lovely picture before us. It came to view suddenly, a green field, a real field with grass on it, and large houses, and the dearest hens and little chickens in all the world, and trees and birds and people at work. The young green things put new life into us, and are so dear to our eyes that we dare not speak a word now, lest the magic should vanish away and we should be left to the stormy scenes we know. But nothing disturbed the fairy sight. Instead, new scenes appeared, beautiful as the first. The sky becomes bluer all the time, the sun warmer, the sea is too quiet for its name, and the most beautiful blue imaginable. What are the feelings these sights awaken? They cannot be described. To know how great was our happiness, how complete, how free from even the shadow of a sadness, you must make a journey of 16 days on a stormy ocean. Is it possible that we will ever again be so happy? It was about 3 hours since we saw the first landmarks, when a number of men came on board from a little steamer, and examined the passengers to see if they were properly vaccinated. We had been vaccinated on the Polynesia, and pronounced everyone all right. Then they went away, except one man who remained. An hour later we saw the wharves. Before the ship had fully stopped, the climax of our joy was reached. One of us espied the figure and face we had longed to see for 3 long years. In a moment 5 passengers on the Polynesia were crying "Papa!" and gesticulating and laughing and hugging one another and going wild together. All the rest were roused by our excitement and came to see our father. He recognized us as soon as we him, and stood apart on the wharf not knowing what to do, I thought. What followed was slow torture. Like mad things we ran about where there was room, unable to stand still as long as we were on the ship and he on shore. To have crossed the ocean only to come within a few yards of him, unable to get nearer till all the fuss was over, was dreadful enough. But to hear other passengers called who had no reason for hurry, while we were left among the last, was unendurable. Oh dear, why can't we get off the hateful ship? Why can't Papa come to us? Why so many ceremonies at the landing? We said good-bye to our friends as their turn came, wishing we were in their luck. To give us something else to think of, Papa succeeded in passing us some fruit, and we wondered to find it anything but a great wonder, for we expected to find everything marvelous in the strange country. Still the ceremonies went on. Each person was asked 100 or so stupid questions, and all their answers were written down by a very slow man. The baggage had to be examined, the tickets, and 100 other things done before anyone was allowed to step ashore, all to keep us back as long as possible. Now imagine yourself parting with all you love, believing it to be a parting for life, breaking up your home, selling the things that years have made dear to you, starting on a journey without the least experience in traveling, in the face of many inconveniences on account of the want of sufficient money, being met with disappointment where it was not to be expected, with rough treatment everywhere, till you are forced to go and make friends for yourself among strangers, being obliged to sell some of your most necessary things to pay bills you did not willingly incur, being mistrusted and searched and half starved, and lodged in common with a multitude of strangers, suffering the miseries of seasickness, the disturbances and alarms of a stormy sea for 16 days, and then stand within a few yards of him for whom you did all this, unable to even speak to him easily? How do you feel? Oh, it's our turn at last! We are questioned, examined, and dismissed. A rush over the planks on one side, over the ground on the other. 6 wild beings cling to each other, bound by a common bond of tender joy, and the long parting is at an end. End of section 4. Recording by Sue Anderson. End of From Plotzk to Boston by Mary Antin.